check, 1, 2. Check, 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 1, 2. Hello out there. Hopefully you can hear me and you can see me. Hello, everybody. Hello out there. Go ahead and start chatting with me. We are live. I know it takes about a minute for things to process from my side to your side. Kind of give you some updates on what's going on here at GuitarZoom and see how things are going in your world. Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for being here this evening, or this afternoon, or whatever time it is in your... Hey, AR. Hey, Jonathan. Hey, Caroline. Hey, Scott. So awesome you guys took time out to hang out with me today. I'm just in my studio. I've been doing some recording today, of course, as I usually do. Been doing some songwriting as well, so it's been kind of fun. Hey, guys. Hey, everybody. Hey, Brian. Hey, Greg. Hey, Gonzo. How you doing? So thank you for joining me today. What we'll be doing is, as usual, we'll just have, hey, Rich, hey, Matt. We'll just be having ourselves a little hangout here, and you can ask any questions about anything you want, and I'll be giving you some updates on things. Now, right now, hey, John, for this webinar that I'm doing right now with you, we use a program called Webinar Jam, okay? And Webinar Jam uses Google Hangouts. And just so you guys know, I mean, not that it's really a big deal, but just so you guys know, hey, Brett, hey, Andy, hey, friend. Webinar Jam and all these other companies are moving away from Google Hangouts, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. So I don't know if anybody was on Glenn Drover's last one a couple weeks ago when he was on there. And he did a webinar, and it wound up being on YouTube. Well, what's happening is these companies are moving away from Google Hangouts, and I don't know if Google Hangouts is quitting or if it's, I don't know what's going on with it, but a lot of these webinar companies are moving from Google Hangouts, and they're moving over to YouTube. So someday in the future, when you log in and we have these Q&As, you're going to be logging into YouTube. Now, that's obviously not happening tonight, but that does happen. And my hope is that the interface will be better, because I've been working really, really hard on trying to get the best interfaces that I can for you guys. And I found a really great one for Facebook Live that I can use, and I think I can use it for this webinar stuff as well, but it will be running through YouTube. So my point is, I'm not going to try and bore you with all this stuff. Hey, Shane. Hey, Randy. But just so you know, if you're having issues on your side, you can always reconnect anytime we're having a webinar, and that should help you. But there are some changes being made in the industry where people will start going to YouTube and not using Google Hangouts anymore, which I am just hoping and praying that means we'll actually have an even better interaction. So right now, just so you know, people like to ask these questions, so I thought I'd let you know. Right now what I'm doing is I am using, here, hold on a second. There we go. I am using, I'll get to your questions in just a second. I am using the 11 rack right now. I don't know if anybody out there has got the 11 rack, but that's what I'm using right now. I found that with the webinars that I do, what I do is I run my shotgun mic, which you can't see here, and I run my guitar into the 11 rack, and then I run those into a mixing console, and then I run that mixing console into an interface. I use what's called a Steinberg U242. And then that runs into my computer, and then that's how I run this. And when it works correctly, it actually works really nice, because the audio is actually, you know, instead of just being a room audio where I got to turn my amp way up, it turns out really nice. But we'll just have to see if it works today. Matt and Tom and I have tested this 50 different ways on different platforms. And again, the one on Facebook Live, we're using a software. I don't know if you guys are interested in this stuff, but we're using a software called Wirecast. And Wirecast is freaking awesome. I mean, it works great. It's seamless and it's clean, and it's just really, really neat. So hopefully we'll start being able to use Wirecast with these webinars and stuff as well. So let's get to your questions. Hey, Paul. Let's see here. Randy says, I tried to join Glenn Drover's webinar yesterday. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened with that. I apologize. I've talked to Glenn. He wasn't sure what happened either. I have been trying as hard as I can to make the webinar software that he's using as easy as possible for him. So all he has to do is connect and you guys are there. So Randy says, as long as it isn't flash-based, yes, I totally agree with that. All right, Ken, what do you got here? Ken, how you doing, Ken? Ken says, I bought the Jamtracks app, and it's a little confusing to me. Can you show me the first diatonic position in A major Dorian and then A minor Dorian? Jamtracks app, huh? Do I have the Jamtracks app? I might have done a thing on it, but let me see what I can do. Let me just see if I've got something in there. Because here's the question I have, Ken, because I'm not exactly sure. I don't see that I've got the app there, but there isn't a first diatonic position of A major Dorian because there is no such thing as A major Dorian. Dorian, let's just clear that up, and then we'll get to everybody else's here. Dorian is the second mode of major, and you probably already know that, but Dorian is the second mode of major. So if you were in G major and you played G major, don't worry about positions right now, just the logic behind it, Ken, and then I'll try and get to your questions here too. I'm trying to get so I can see the chat a little bit better. There we go. So, Ken, here's the deal, is if you're in G major, the second note of G is A. So then you're in A Dorian, okay? And what that means, and again, it's a longer conversation that we probably can have right now, but what that really means is you're in the key of G, but instead of emphasizing the note G and the chord G major, you're going to emphasize the chord A minor, which is the second chord in the key of G, and the note A minor, or the note A, excuse me. So you're going to use these same notes, but you're going to try and emphasize the A. Okay, so Ken, I'm not sure if that helps you. I'm going to try and get to everybody, and if you respond again, I'm going to keep trying to help you there, okay? Caroline, yeah, I mean, Caroline says, I guess moving to YouTube would be more convenient and easier for the company. Well, that's the thing, is the industry is moving to YouTube. Like, it's not just, you know, like for us, we don't have a choice in the matter. They just send us a thing saying, which Google and Facebook and all these guys, they have all these marketing things that they do, and then all of a sudden they'll go, well, you're not allowed to do that anymore. And then all of a sudden you got to try and do something else. And that's what's happening is the market is moving to YouTube and away from Google, and I'm not sure why, because the program that we use isn't the only one. There's other ones that are doing it too. Now, you do have programs like GoToMeeting and things like that that don't use any of it. They use their own platform. But our goal is to try and have something that's just very simple. It has a chat, and then it's got the part for us and all the backside stuff that we got to do. So let's see here. Jeremy says, hey, Steve. Hey, Jeremy. In honor of Jimi Hendrix passing, any chance you could play a little bit of that you think players should have in their bag of tricks? Okay, so he's saying in honor of Hendrix, tell us one technique of his that you think all players should have. Jeremy, I'm going to give you my spiel on Jimi Hendrix. I love Jimi Hendrix, but I don't know that I love Jimi Hendrix for the same reason that everybody else does. I love Jimi Hendrix not so much because of his soloing, and I'm not sure that everybody else loves him for his soloing either. I haven't interviewed everybody about it, but what I love about Jimi Hendrix is his chord phrasing, okay? If you guys have ever heard me talk about chord chasing, Jimi Hendrix is one of the guys that I first studied that I learned about chord chasing. Because, like, if you had a... you know, all that kind of stuff, he was a stinking master at chordal embellishments, where instead of just playing bar chords or open chords or something like that, he was always doing really, really neat stuff with his chords. mean? That kind of stuff. So for me, if you were going to study some Jimi Hendrix, I would totally tell you to look at stuff like Wind Cries Mary, or well, I mean, there's a bunch of them. 6 Was 9 is a really good one. You know, there's all kinds of different songs. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. My brain is in a different gear right now. But that's what I would tell you, is when it comes to Jimi Hendrix, it's more of his chord stuff. And just to give you something to work on, if you think about it, if you've got this, I mean, there's a million of these, but if you had a C bar chord, what you do is you take this guy, so you're on the 3rd fret here on the 5th string, which is C, you're going to slide up with your 3rd finger on the 5 to the 7, and then you're going to take your 1st finger and go to the 5th fret of the 3rd string and make a chord there, and then dead out everything else around it. And see, there's B flat. Okay, and then in this case, if I wanted to go to F, I could just go to an F. And then, of course, he would use these little shapes. But it's the caged chord chasing element. That's what he did. Okay. Let's see here. Scott says, in the cage-made simple system. Oh, I don't want it to run away here. The flats and sharps were kind of confusing. Could you hit on that for a minute? I'm not sure what you mean by the sharps and flats were kind of confusing, Scott. Can you elaborate a bit more? Do another text and tell me a little bit more about what you mean. I don't know if you mean the connections of the caged. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Randy says, Steve, can you talk about and demo the use of major and minor pentatonic together? Absolutely. And then I'll get to you, Scott. I'm going to get to you. Just keep posting it up there. I have to keep my chat from scrolling, otherwise I lose everybody here. So if you throw something else up there, Scott, I'm going to get to it. Randy, can you talk about the use of major and minor? Yeah, I mean, the basic idea of major and minor pentatonic, of course, is that if you want minor pentatonic, let's say we're in the key of A, and you want minor pentatonic, you put your first finger on A, and you've got yourself your minor pentatonic. So if you wanted C, you'd move up to C, put your first finger on C, play that first position, you got yourself minor pentatonic. Major pentatonic, on the other hand, of course, is done by moving down towards the headstock 3 frets. 1, 2, 3, which means your pinky winds up being on the A. Okay? Now, that means your first finger actually winds up being on the F sharp, and that's okay. But when you move down there, this is the major pentatonic. The difference, of course, is that when you're in A minor pentatonic, your A is here, and your A is here, and your A is here. If you're in major pentatonic now, which means I move down 3 frets, your A is where your pinky is, and your A is here, and your A is here. You see? Okay? So that's what major and minor pentatonic is. So if you want to play something in minor pentatonic, you're up here, like let's say you're doing something over a minor chord. You're doing something over a major chord. And you got major pentatonic. The cool part is when you start learning how to combine the two together. And of course, that takes some study, but what it really requires from you is that you're able to see more than just one position, because right now, minor pentatonic could be here, major pentatonic could be here. They're not overlapping each other. But if you knew more positions of each, you could start overlapping them, okay? Let's see, what else do we got? Randy, there we go. Jonathan, do you any more pointers about tone that aren't on the video? You know, the key with tone, Jonathan, is that for me, you know, tone starts with my amp or my guitar. Tone starts with my strings. It starts with my pickups. And it starts with, most importantly, which I'm not sure which video you're talking about, but most importantly, it's the way that I run my toggle switch and my volume knob. Because most of you know I don't have a tone control. I have my tone controls taken out of all my guitars. And then I put what's called an SPC unit in there, which gives me more kind of a gain boost when I need it. So most of my tone is built off of the pickups that I have and adjusting my volume and my toggle switch. But when it comes to amps and things like that, again, you know, the biggest thing is trying to dial in the most important thing for all you guys to understand about tone is that if you get an amp and you try and dial it in, and you have to have some stuff on 2 and then some stuff on 10, and nothing is at like 50%, it may not be the right amp for you. And I know that's a big generalization, because it is. But, I mean, if you have to massively tweak that amp to get what you're looking for, it just might not be the right amp, okay? So think about that a little bit if that helps you. Brian, let's see, Brian, it says, hey, I got a question too, and it says mode question mark. So I'm going to wait, I'm going to keep scrolling up, and Brian, hopefully you can elaborate on that, because I might have missed that one. Let's see. Matt says, thanks to you and Glenn's tips and tricks, I was able to land an audition with a black metal band. I have a week or so I'll be practicing alternate and tremolo picking in harmonic minor and diminished. Any more last-minute tips? Well, Matt, again, that's a big conversation, but as far as landing the gig, what I found about getting gigs quickly is how quick can I memorize the material that they're giving me? And how quickly can I adjust to the situation that I'm in? So if they want me to solo or something like that, can I do it, right? Can I make a solo that fits the situation? But I think even more important than the soloing is the technique and the ability to play the song. You know, like when you're playing stuff that's faster and things like that, it's really, really important that you line up. And Matt, for me, one of the big things for me is when I play in various metal bands is lining up with the drummer, right? So you've got that double kick happening and things like that, and learning how to, whatever it would be. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear this or not, but let me try this here. There we go. So let's say like this. Hopefully you guys can hear that. I think you can. So I can't really hear it, but I'll do the best I can. So what you do is you line up with things, all right? So when you're playing something, you see what I mean? So that's one of the biggest things is when you're playing, whatever it is, think about synchronization. Think about lining up, right? And the more flawless your technique is when you play things, the better you're going to fit into that situation. You know, if they're just hiring you to do solos, that's one thing, but most of the time you're doing everything. So rhythm is really important. Locking in and being able to memorize songs, that's really, really important. So, let's see here. Shane says, I just bought the theory pack. How would I play chords and notes in the key of C? Could you explain and show me on the fretboard? Well, again, that's a pretty broad statement, Shane. I mean, if you wanted to play chords and notes, the chords of the key of C would be C major, right? Remember, your 1, 4, 5 is major, your 2, 3, 6 is minor, and then your 7 is diminished, right? So how would you play the chords? Well, it depends on where you'd be. If you were down here, you'd play your C major, D minor, E minor, F major, right? If you know that one, G major, A minor, and then you have B diminished, which leads back, okay? So you just have to remember, Shane, your 1, 4, 5 is always major, your 2, 3, 6 is always minor, and your 7 is always diminished. Now, showing you that on the fretboard, that would be all kinds of stuff, but it's going to be those same notes, right? You're going to have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And of course, that can be played. You can play it all over the fretboard. So that takes a little bit of work, is learning how to play it everywhere. But the point is if you took your fretboard out of it entirely, your chords are C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished, and then you study to whatever degree you want on your fretboard. And the notes, of course, would be no sharps and no flats, so you're always playing the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then back to C. But that requires, I mean, that's the twofold, Shane, is that number one is understanding theory, number two is applying theory, and a lot of guitar players start by applying elements to their fretboard. They don't understand what they're doing. That's how I learned how to play. and then the theory came afterward. If you're starting with the theory, you've still got to learn how to apply all this stuff. You've got to learn to visually look at the shapes and the patterns, we call them, or positions, scale positions, to be able to see those things. Randy says, hopefully we will continue to use Webinar Jam since it seems to work well. I agree, and we will continue to use Webinar Jam. It'll just, the actual conversion will take place on YouTube as opposed to Google Hangouts. Which again, I hope, because it's YouTube, the conversion will be even more efficient than it is right now with Google Hangouts. That's what I'm hoping. Let's see here, Brian. Let's see. Oh, Brian. There's Brian. Brian says Les Blues, but I still am not sure what you're saying, but unless I just played something. Okay, Shane says, let's see, you got that? Ken, Little Wing. Little Wing is all over the place. I don't know that I've ever played Little Wing exactly the right way. So... And really the key with it is I don't know that there is a right way anyway, because I'm sure if you watch Jimi Hendrix play it on 5 different videos, it's different every time. I think the key is trying to get the general gist of it is the big thing, you know. Let's see here. Brian says, I have one too, Steve. I'm waiting. I've tried to make my way up. I'm not sure what you're saying, buddy. Randy says, Hear My Train A-Comin'. That's a great blues song, too. There you go. There's a bunch of great Jimi Hendrix ones. And again, for me, his blues playing is way more important to me than the more rock stuff. But I will always go with the more mellow Hendrix stuff. I could just sit and have a drink and turn the lights down a little bit and just listen to mellow Hendrix for hours on end. I love that stuff. I feel something. I just love. I love the way he wrote, and I love the way that he played. And I don't know that this is true, but I had heard rumors that by the time of his death, he was actually studying a lot of jazz. And so he was really into like chordal elements and things like that. And again, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I had heard. So thank you, Brian. Brian says, best teacher ever. You are awesome, buddy. Let's see here. Shane says, could you show and explain how I would play the chords? I just did that, Shane. Scott says, yes, the connection starting with the flats and sharps on the caged. Well, the connection doesn't, the connection of caged has nothing to do with sharps and flats. Let's just get that out of our minds. Because if you were going to play, like for instance, let's say you were going to play the caged system over C, over the chord C. You wanted to play the chord C everywhere across the fretboard. You have to remember, first of all, what caged is referring to is 5 chords. The C chord, the A chord, the G chord, the E chord, and the D chord. The second thing is they're always connected in that order. Okay? And then the third thing is you just put it wherever you want it. So just, again, this is going to be a really short version of this, but here's C. So this is the C shape of the caged. It's the C shape. So the next shape is A, and that connects onto the third finger right here. That's where you'd go to make the A shape, which is actually your 5th string bar chord. So this is C, and this is C. Now where this finger is, you're going to bar over that, and you're going to make the G shape with your other 3 fingers, but your 3rd finger now is on C. So it looks like a G chord, but it's in the position to sound like a C chord. And then where these 2 fingers are, you'd bar over that, and you'd connect with an E shape, which is your 6th string bar chord. Okay, and then where your pinky is, you'd bar over that, and you'd make the D shape of the caged. And then when you get up here, you're just going to start all over 1 octave higher with that C chord you started with. Now that's how you do 1 caged, right, over C. If you wanted to do C sharp, right, you want to do the caged system, but you want to use C sharp, you're going to do the exact same thing, but you're going to move up 1 fret. Now in order to move up 1 fret, I have to refinger it though, right, because I got a bar. So it's still the C shape, but it's on C sharp. Where my pinky is, I'm going to connect the A shape. Where the 3rd finger is, I'm going to connect to the G shape. Where these 2 fingers are, I'm going to connect to the E shape. Where the pinky is, I'm going to connect to the D shape. So it's the exact same thing, it just shifts up and down the guitar. So you can use the caged system over any chord, whether it's a sharp chord or a flat chord. I hope that helps you. I'm trying. I hope that makes sense because I really am trying my best. I just want to get to everybody so I don't miss anybody. Okay. Let's see here. Let's see here. Melvin says, is the gear guy still coming on board? No, I actually started doing some shop talk videos myself, and then I'm going to find somebody else. I'm still looking for someone to fill that space. So, because, the thing about making video is that you don't only have to know about gear, but you've got to have video equipment and audio equipment and all that sort of lighting and blah, blah, blah to make it look halfway decent. And certainly sound halfway decent, because if you're going to promote a pedal, I shouldn't say promote, but if you're going to demo a pedal, that's a better word. That's the best word, actually. You got to have some decent sounds out of it so people can listen to it and go, oh, that's what it's supposed to sound like. So, unfortunately, I'm still looking for a gear person. I haven't found that right person, so you can always let me know if you've got some ideas of somebody that has a crap ton of gear and video equipment and a personality that isn't like a rock, because that's the other thing is there are a lot of people that know a lot about gear out there, but if they're not making it fun for you, it's not going to work for me. So it needs to be that. Melvin, so I'm looking for this person, Melvin, but I don't have anybody. Caroline says, concerning the IGPA Summit, I know that on Friday the meet and greet starts at 7, but what time does the event start on Saturday? The event starts from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. on Saturday. And you are the first to know that Griff Hamlin will be at the event as well. I convinced Griff that he needs to get off his butt and get to the summit, and we haven't advertised it yet, but I'm telling you right now because I just talked to him today on the phone. Griff is going to be there. So if you guys know who Griff Hamlin is, which I'm assuming you probably do, Griff is a wonderful blues player, incredible teacher, great personality, and just honestly, just a super, super awesome guy. I enjoy hanging out with Griff, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. So Friday at the meet and greet, Griff will be there. Glenn Drover will be there. I'll be there. Dan will be there. And I'll tell you more details on it, although I'll tell you a little bit right now because we're working on everything. But you'll get registered sometime that day, earlier than 7 p.m. There'll be someone there at the room that will register you. You'll get your backstage, laminate thing, your lanyard, and some different things you'll get. And then Friday night we'll all hang out. There'll be a wonderful meet and greet where we get to talk to each other, get to know each other face to face. And then Saturday you're going to be learning from Griff. He's going to be putting on a session for you, and then you're going to be learning from Glenn. And then somewhere around there we'll be breaking for lunch, and then you'll come back and you'll be learning from me for the afternoon. And that's where we're going to be really spending some good quality one-on-one time, talking to each and every one of you and getting to know what you're doing and jam together. And again, it's no pressure. I'm not making anybody jam if you don't want to jam. And even if we do jam, it isn't a head-cutting duel like on Crossroads. It's not that. It's me helping you. That's what it is. So there's no pressure whatsoever. And you don't need to bring a guitar if you don't want to. There will be a guitar there. If you do want to bring a guitar, that's fine. Don't bring pedals and stuff like that, though, because we're going to have to be keeping this thing moving pretty well. So we don't want a bunch of pedals you got to hook up and all that sort of thing. So, and next year, yeah, and just so you know, this year is our first time out. We're giving this a go. And, getting everything set up. Next year is going to be far bigger and far more extravagant. And I've got lots of really, really fun plans for next year to give you guys really the full experience of not just learning, but playing. And I can't tell you exactly what I'm thinking, but it's going to be cool. And again, my job is to make you feel good. My job is not to intimidate you or to make you go, man, I don't want to get up and do that. No, I want you to get up, and I want you to have fun, and I want you to smile, and I want you to feel good, and have someone take some pictures of you, and you can post them, and it'll be awesome. So let me keep going here. Let's see. Awesome Chapman stick, Steve. I don't play the Chapman stick. See, Brian, you say something like that. A Chapman stick. Like, that makes me want to turn my guitar into a coffee table, because I look at someone who plays a Chapman stick and I go, man, do I suck, right? You watch some players out there and you just go, what the heck? Like they're from another planet or something. Let's see here. Any news regarding the IGPA Summit? agenda guests other. John, hopefully I just kind of answered your question on that. So Griff Hamlin is coming. I verified it today. He is going to be there. Glenn will be there. I will be there, of course. Dan will be there, and we'll be doing a lot of talking and learning, but interactive learning too, not just watching a bunch of people talk about guitar playing. You watch me talk about guitar all the time. It's time for us to hang out. It's time for us to talk and play together and, you know, have an actual lesson with each other. That's what we need to do. So, let's see. Save me a shirt, Brian says. I'll see if I can do that. I'll see what I can do. Okay, Brian is bringing his stick next year. That would be freaking awesome. Guys, you got to pick out Steve for his purple phone. I don't have a purple phone. Does it look purple? It should be silver, but I don't know. Maybe it looks purple. Hey, by the way, guys, I don't know if you've heard of this before, but there's a company out there called Pedal Genie. I don't know if anybody knows of Pedal Genie. But Pedal Genie, what you do is you sign up and you get X amount of pedals. They mail you pedals that you could try out, and then you can buy them if you want. So you can get one, and it's not one a month. You pay a monthly fee, but you get a pedal, and you can keep the pedal for 6 months if you want, or you can keep the pedal for 2 days and return it, and they get you a different pedal. Or you can sign up and they send you like 3 pedals, and you can try them all out. And if you want one, you buy it, and they just charge you for it, and you don't send it back. You send back the other 2. It is a wonderful company. It's a little bit expensive, but I can understand what they're trying to do and how it probably costs a lot of money to buy all those pedals up front. And then, of course, you know, if anything happens in shipping or gets lost and those sorts of things. So, all right. So anyway, Pedal Genie. If you've never checked that out, Pedal Genie is pretty stinking awesome. Let's see. Thanks, crap. Brian says, at least my name was in lights. That's good. Let's see. Jonathan says, want instruments are good to listen to study, like sax for guitar leads, and more melodic and vocal sound. You know what works, Jonathan? Well, saxophone is great, but another thing you can do is listen to singers. Like I grew up mimicking, the 2 that I used to mimic a lot were Freddie Mercury from Queen and not Joe Perry, Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. Totally. Like Steven Tyler for me was directly applicable to my guitar when I would listen to Steven Tyler sing. So that's the other thing that you can do is you can listen to singers. And the other thing, Jonathan, is remember players that already play saxophone like. You know, like Steve Lukather from Toto would be a really good one. Gary Moore, Roy Buchanan to a certain degree, Neil Schon from Journey. These are all guys that really already have some of that saxophone element in their playing. Prince is another one for sure, where they've got this ability to phrase like a saxophone. So instead of having to go all the way back to sax, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you could look at singers for sure, because the singer's always got, the right singer anyway, has already got it all figured out. He or she is already doing exactly what you and I are talking about right now, Jonathan. Okay? Let's see here. Matt says, Jonathan Santana, yeah. There's another perfect one, for sure. Shane says, I know how to play all 7 chords on the top 5 frets, but how would I know where to place my fingers for chords on higher frets? Well, you got to study them, Shane. There is no other way. Again, the thing about chords, Shane, is that they just get repeated. As long as you know the names of the notes on the 6th string and the names of the notes on the 5th string mostly, your chords just move, right? So if you learn how to play a 6-string bar chord, it just moves around. Well, technically, all the open chords that you would know are all movable too, but you have to add a bar in front of them. Like when you make E and you move up, it becomes the 6-string bar chord. But if you took D and added a bar, that's also movable. It just changes names every time you move up. C, as I just showed you. C, which is pretty tough down here for me because I got small fingers, but that one, they're all movable. So as you move up the guitar, you're not really creating all these new chords that didn't exist down here. Everything that you learn down here is movable. Yes, they change because you might be making a 7th chord or a 9th chord, an 11th chord, or a sus chord, or an add chord. And that's the thing, Shane. There are thousands of different chords. So when you say I know how to play all 7 chords on the top 5 frets, I'm not sure what you mean, Shane, because there are way more than 7 chords on the top 5 frets. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. Paul says, how many hours a day did it take you to get so fast? Here's my story, Paul. When I was in high school, certainly, I used to practice 2, 3, 4 hours a day. And but when I got to college, I'm not even being weird here. I had a full-time job, and I was going to college, and I just never slept. And I would practice all the time. And when I got out of college, there was a time before I got married, of course, that I was probably practicing 8 hours a day. And just hardcore. I had a regimen set up every day that I would just practice not only technique, but writing and groove and creativity and sound and visual aspects and all these different things that I would do on a daily basis. And I was just absolutely, absolutely obsessed with playing. And honestly, Paul, that's the trick, is you don't have to do all that. You don't have to practice 8 hours a day, but you do have to be strict on what it is that you're studying. Because what I find a lot is, and don't get me wrong, guys, please don't get me wrong, because there is no wrong way to practice. As long as you are having fun and you are learning and you are on a path that works for you, you're not doing anything wrong, okay? But there is an ability to refine. Just like if you went to the gym and you were going to, you were going to work on your upper body or something, and you're doing you're doing squats or something. There's a better path for things. And so what I always tell people is, if there's something that you really want to do, you've got to devote enough time to it to where it goes into the inner part of your brain. Like, you all know what I mean, because when you hear something, like you're looking at Facebook and you see a quote, or you're watching a movie and somebody says something, you go, hey, that was a really great line, I'm going to remember that. And then 15 minutes later, you can't remember what they were talking about. The deep thought is where you need to get. So when you're practicing something, like I could literally sit and practice, and I still can. I could sit and I'm not going to sit and try and show off and that sort of thing. My point is, there's something about that that really gets me ready to play. I enjoy locking in. I enjoy the feeling of locking into something. Whether it's a groove, whether it's a metal thing, whether it's a funk thing, it doesn't matter what it is, but locking into something real. And so I would sit with a metronome. And the other thing that I'll tell you, and I'll get off this because we got a lot of people to get to, but you got to be honest with yourself when you're learning these things. You got to be honest, okay? If you're practicing and it's just a big messy mud of nothing, you got to slow it down, and you got to find a base to start from. You got to start from a spot where you're going, yes, I'm lined up with this, and it's way slower than I want it to be, but I'm lined up and it's working. And then you just got to start putting in the man hours or the girl hours if you want to try and get there. Okay? Let's see. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for everybody that's answering some of these questions. That certainly helps out a lot. Have you ever played blues jams on stage where another guitar player plays a few licks, small solo, and then you take a turn? That's what Jeremy is asking, like in Crossroads? Yes, I've done that a million zillion times, okay? Like in Crossroads, where with Karate Kid, when they start battling it out. Any advice for that kind of fun back and forth duel? Well, here's the thing, Jeremy. If you want it to be fun, then you don't make it a battle. We call it cutting heads. That's what it's called. And basically what happens is when you're playing with somebody and you want to keep upping the ante, right? You want to keep pushing the level. And, I mean, that's what it is. So sometimes you'll play with somebody and you guys will just be battling with each other trying to go at it. And sometimes what you do is you play compatible. Like when you're playing with each other, you're trying to kind of feed each other. So I might do a lick, and then you go ba-da-ba-boom-bum, and then you do whatever. We're not trying to kill each other. We're trying to make music together. Now, again, I'm not saying either one is bad or good. It depends on who's doing it. I love the cut and head thing in the right perspective when you're doing it with someone who wants to do that, right? I don't do that to people, and I wouldn't want someone to do it to me either that doesn't want to do that. So it is a lot of fun, okay? So the advice, Jeremy, is try and, I mean, if you're going to do that with somebody that you are friends with, or you guys have a mutual understanding of music and what you're looking for with what you're doing, unless you guys you have that kind of relationship where you want to battle each other. You want to keep trying to one-up the other person. which again is just a silly, childish thing, but we do it. People do it all the time, and it is kind of fun. I mean, you know, it's actually a lot of fun. Like we used to do it in one of the bands I was in. We would do it every night. We would do battles, and you know, the audience would just love it. So it's really neat. Randy says, Steve, you play Crazy Train? Yes, and it is in the key of A. That's right. It starts off in F sharp major or F sharp minor, which is F sharp minor. But remember, Randy, that F sharp minor is really A major. So when it goes into the you're in A major. So the beginning of the song is in F sharp minor, the rest of the song is in A major, but technically they're the same thing. So it's kind of cool. That's why he can go there. Right? You're moving back and forth between A major and F sharp minor. So it's pretty cool. Let's see here. Awesome. Awesome. Guys, I'm trying to get through this stuff. I'm glad you guys are helping each other. This is awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much, because it's just really hard and we're running out of time. Okay, Paul says, if you want to play slide, is it better to have multiple guitars so as to have some in open tuning? Well, it sounds like you're trying to sell yourself a guitar, Paul. That's what it sounds like to me. You're trying to purchase something, which a lot of blues songs are played in. Well, sure, you could own 5 different guitars all in different tunings. I don't know if you're married, Paul, but if you could make that work for you, tell me how it went for you, and maybe I could try the same thing. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's nice to have different guitars and different tunings. It's really convenient when you're in a hurry, right? The biggest thing that I find with slide is that, I mean, if depending on the tuning that you're going to be in, it might require some different strings, right? So if you have a guitar that's tuned standard and you want to be in a certain tuning that requires different thicknesses of strings, that's where you're going to run into a problem. The other problem that you run into is if you're playing live, you don't have time to be retuning for 4 minutes in between songs to switch back and forth. You need something quick. But the biggest thing with learning how to play slide, Paul, is getting a guitar where the strings are far enough away from the neck. You know, if you play with a low action, which, you know, my guitars all have quite a low action. So if I want to do slide, it does not work well with these kind of guitars because the strings are so low. You know, and I've heard like stories of Joe Walsh who would put a pencil in here to raise the strings up. He'd shove a pencil in there. I'm assuming he would loosen the strings, right, and put the pencil in and then tune it back up. So the strings would be quite high in the studio, and then that's how he would do his slide stuff. And when he was done, he would loosen it up, take it out, and he was done. Again, I don't know if that's true or not, but it certainly works. So there are things like that that you can do to make it play better, Paul. But needless to say, I mean, like for me, I have all these guitars with locking tremolos. So when I play, if I'm playing, you know, just with this one tuning, I already have 2 guitars that I have to bring in case I break a string. Because this guitar becomes completely unplayable on stage if I break a string because of the floating tremolo system. If I have 2 different tunings, then I got 4 guitars on stage. So that's kind of the problem that I have, which almost always happens. And if I get lazy and then I don't bring a backup guitar, sure enough, that's when I'm going to break a string and I'm going to be screwed. So it was so awesome. I did that once. I was playing in Minneapolis and we were playing with this band, and I got out there. They were opening for us, so they played, and we came out. We were playing. We were stomping all over the place, and boom, I break a string. I don't have a backup guitar, so these people are out there going crazy, and I'm trying to play guitar, and my string is broken. And the guy that played guitar in the opening band come running up. He had this really cool Iron Maiden Fear the Dark guitar, which if you look at pictures on my site, you'll see it. But he throws it up to me and takes my guitar, and I put on his guitar, and he saved the day. He gave me his guitar, and he was in half-step tuning, which is what I usually play in. So it was perfect. He was so awesome. So thank God he was there. Okay, let's see here. We asked Matt says, we asked Glenn Drover a lot of gear questions, both studio and guitar gear. That's awesome. Yeah, he knows a lot of stuff about that. Certainly about his gear, the stuff that he's used before, which is perfect. Yeah, Glenn's a good guy like that. That's awesome. Howard says, I have heard the mark of a good guitarist is that they can play without effects, mainly on acoustic. What do you think? Well, again, I think that's somebody that plays acoustic that is frustrated with someone who plays electric. Howard, in my opinion, I don't have those kind of opinions. There's no doubt that if you played acoustic all the time, your fingers would probably be stronger and your technique would probably be cleaner, right? But the edge from U2 is the edge because of his effects. I mean, he just is. And it's not like he sucks because he doesn't play acoustic. He's the edge, and that's the sound that he makes. So I suppose if you're going from that core element where you're talking about the raw element of guitar playing, sure, I could see that. But I think it's those other things that bring uniqueness to what we do. Now, Howard, there's no doubt that it is possible to over-affect and over-distort and all these other things a signal to the point where we are now masking what we're doing on purpose. We're really doing this because we don't want our real selves to be heard. Howard, you're the only one that can say that about yourself, because I don't know. I can only say that about myself. But I moved away from effects a long time ago, and you guys have heard me talk about effects a long time ago, but I use distortion because I'm a rock and roll player. But really for me, it's a little bit of reverb, and once in a while I have a little bit of delay here and there, and that's kind of what I go with. And it's not so much, I mean, I learned a long time ago how to make sure that when I'm on stage, my guitar is heard by the audience with boosting my mid-range and all that sort of thing and lowering my lows down a little bit. So I'm a sound guy's best friend, because when I get up on stage, I'm not impossible to work with. I've got a tone that they go, good, I can work with this, and they're happy. That's what I'm looking for. So when I go to solo or I go to play something, you as an audience are hearing what I'm doing. Mistakes and all, you're hearing what I'm doing. I'm not pretending to do something that I'm not doing. I just better darn well frickin' learn it, right? That's the way I see it. So hopefully that helps you a little bit, Howard. That's the way I feel about it is, if you're using it to mask something, to hide something, then that's a bad thing. But if it's, like being a private guitar teacher for almost 30 years, you get these little kids that come in 7, 8, 9 years old and they want to learn how to play guitar, and their parents have bought them some acoustic guitar where the strings are a half an inch away from the neck and the strings look like, the neck is almost bowed from the tension of the strings. And they're going, well, you should learn how to play an acoustic, and you feel sorry for these little kids because their little fingers are never going to make it, right? And the reason that they're playing guitar isn't so they can go home and have to lift weights. They just want to go home and make some music. So that's the other thing I think about a little bit as well is, regardless if you play an electric or an acoustic, you've got to find the right size strings. You got to find the right instrument. You got to find that guitar that fits you, that feels good. So when you go to grab it, you're making music the way you're hearing it in here. Not feeling guilty because you're using 9s instead of 10 gauge strings or something like that. You got to get out of that game because there's no winning. There's no winning. Do thicker strings sound better? Yeah. In the bigger picture, but there's a million variables that go into that. Again, I'm going to get off this, but just so you understand that. Okay? Let's see. Be sure to tell Griff, Jeremy says, that those who can't make the summit, he is much appreciated. He is. Griff's a frickin' awesome dude. And I love the way he teaches, and I love the way he plays. And like I said, I have no tolerance for attitude, and Griff does not have an attitude. Griff's a really awesome guy. Let's see here. Let's see. Yep. And hopefully I can get Griff. I mean, my big thing would be getting guys like next year, get Griff, get Marty Schwartz, get a bunch of these guys out there and just have some fun and let you guys hang out with everybody and just do our thing, and we'll teach you guys and hang out, and it'll just be a blast. Have a big party, so to speak. So next year, that's what I'm hoping for. Brian says he already feels like he knows me. That's awesome, Brian. I have always lived my life trying not to pretend like I'm something I am not. I am just who I am. Except for those of you who meet me, you're going to go, wow, is he really short? That's what you're going to say. And it's true. So let's see here. Paul says, my slide question, is it a good idea to have like 3 guitars if you play slide? Well, again, Paul, if you have money to spend on 3 guitars, sure. And I'm not being cynical. I'm being completely honest. Some people don't have money to spend on 3 slide guitars, but if you do and slide is your beast, like if that's your thing, go for it. I think that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, if you have a bunch of other guitars, make sure you've got the bases covered. Make sure you've got standard tuning and half-step tuning and drop D tuning or whatever it might be that you you tend to use a lot, and then go into those lesser used ones again, unless you're an avid slide player, Paul. If you're a huge slide player, that makes complete sense to have different guitars for those tunings. I think that's awesome. Okay, Brian's back with Chapman stick. John says, are you bringing a backing band? No, not this year, because there's just too much to try and get ready. But next year, John, that is my plan, is to bring a band, and you guys will jam with us, and we'll have a list of songs that you can choose from that you'll already know about, so you can already prepare, and you can play them with us, you can sing them with us, you can do whatever. It's gonna be awesome. Let's see here. Long weekend next year. Yeah, Mark, my hope is that we could turn, Mark says, wish I could go this year. Long weekend next year, question mark. That's what I would like. But again, it depends on how many people we can get signed up for the IGPA. You know, if we can grow the IGPA big enough that where we can warrant a larger event that's more days with more guests, guest artists and things like that, I'm all about it. But we just got to see what we can do, okay? Let's see. Jonathan says, at your suggestion, I got 3 pedals you suggested, reverb, chorus, and delay. And if I got a 4th pedal, what would you recommend? He's thinking wah-wah would be a nice addition. I love the wah pedal. Actually, just did a shop talk on the wah pedal. Here, hold on a second. This is my Steve Vai Bad Horsey pedal. And this is what I use. I have 3 of these laying around, and I've got a couple of the Bad Horsey 2s, but I like the original ones better. I use my wah. I used to use my wah a lot. I actually made like I said, a shop talk video that tells about 4. I think there was 4 different ways of using the wah effectively. So you're not just wah 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 wah, you know, just making a bunch of noise, but actually using it in a musical sense. So you'll watch for that. That'll be coming. Matt says sound is getting crackly. I apologize for that, Matt. I know it sucks. I wish it was easier, but this webinar stuff is just hard enough the way it is. So anyway, guys, what time do we got? We got 6:51. I'm going to try and blow through some of these. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Guys, don't feel bad about missing the summit. If you're busy and you got something going on, that's fine. Next year, what I want to do is I want to get the summit for 2017 booked early, way early, so you guys have more than enough time to prepare. So don't feel bad about it. I get it, man. It's all right. Let's see. Oh, so, Brian, you're saying you ordered a Chapman stick? Is that what you said? You ordered a Chapman stick? I can't teach you how to play a Chapman stick. Brian, you learn how to play the Chapman stick and then make an instructional video, and I'm going to buy it from you, man. I would totally learn how to play the Chapman stick. Oh, that's great. Let's see. Agreeing with Matt, audio occasionally gets distorted. Carolina, I'm sorry. Like I said, there's not much I can do about it on my end. Let's see here. Randy says, a few days ago I was trying to learn a Joe Satriani song, Always With Me, Always With You, which was in B major. That is correct. Using the E Lydian mode. That is correct. Do you play that song? I used to play Always With Me, Always With You all the time, but I haven't played it in a long time. I love the, which I can't remember how it goes, though. That whole little thing is just, there's a bunch of really, if anybody on this webinar hasn't learned Always With Me, Always With You, you should learn it. You should totally learn it, okay? Randy, that's an awesome tune. And it's a doable tune. There's a couple spots where it gets a little bit, hairy in there, but otherwise, Randy, it's a pretty straightforward song as far as Joe Satriani is concerned. John B. says, do you have a count of the number of people attending? I don't know for sure. I think the count is somewhere around 60 right now. I think, but I don't know for sure. And we have a capacity of 100 people. So it might be higher than that now. It probably is. I don't know for sure, John. Let's see. Paul says hello. Paul, what's up, Paul? Let's see here. Chrome. Let's see. Boss GT8 is acceptable for a guitarist on a budget. Yeah, Matt, that's an awesome pedal for sure. Let's see. Brian, it's official. I'm from another planet. Very nice. Chuck says, I would love to make it. Unfortunately, I fractured my elbow. Oh, that sucks, man. Oh, that sucks. Okay, Donald says I'm a Hawkeye. Bring me a North Dakota State football jersey. Have you converted, Donald? Huh? Have you converted? Are you now a Bison fan? Our team is freaking awesome. It's so awesome. I used to, I worked at NDSU for many years teaching modern guitar studies over there. And it's awesome. It's an awesome school. It's an awesome, whole North Dakota in general is just a pretty awesome place. Everybody gets along really well, it seems. So, yeah, Brian says he's going to bring the stick next year. I'm all about it. Let's see. Jonathan says Freddie Mercury, best voice in rock. I would have to agree with that. Let's see. Andy says, I'm struggling with the D minor 7 in open position. Can you show an easy position to play D minor 7? Sure. I mean, if you have D minor would be like this. And if you want, so I got 1, 3, 2 would be D minor. D minor 7 is just 1, 1, 2. And then 0, of course, on the 4th string. So that's, yeah, that's how you do D minor 7, Andy. Randy says he lost me. Sorry about that, Randy. Let's see here. Matt says I still have video. That's good. Howard says I have heard that the mark of a... Oh, we already talked about that one. Yep. Let's see. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's see. Tosh, I used a company called Tri-Pedal a couple years ago. I haven't heard of that one. I'll have to take a look at that one. You got a bad chord somewhere. Yeah, if you hear a little bit of that, it's my noise gate grabbing it. Let's see here. Donald says, I've got a 60s brain. I fried the CPU years ago. Very nice. Okay, let's see here. So, guys, it looks like we kind of got everything. Let's see. Caroline says, do you have any suggestions on how to better synchronize strumming and chord hands? Well, Caroline, the most important thing for me is that you practice them separately. Like to synchronize strumming, for me, they're independent, right? So strumming, I always have my students scratch to songs. So they'll put on the radio or put on their favorite, playlist or whatever, and they'll just practice making music. Then you practice over here bouncing. Like this is the big thing that I teach people how to do is bouncing chords. Trying to do this stuff is pointless if this hand or this hand isn't sure what's going on. So like bouncing is, think of it this way, Caroline, if you've never done this before. If I want to make a G chord, I don't want to wait till I get here to make the G chord because it's going to be late every time. I want to be here, and as I'm reaching, I've already made the G chord. I just set it down. So if I want a D, as I lift my fingers, I call it lift and shift. So there's G. If I want D, I lift up, I shift, and then I set it down. If I want G, I lift it and shift. So what you do is you practice, and I'm saying shift, okay? You practice bouncing a single chord over and over and over and over and over. It doesn't have to be fast or anything, but what you're doing is you're training muscle memory in your hand to make that chord shape, whatever shape it is. It doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. You just practice it over and over and over, okay? And then as you get comfortable with that one chord, you practice another chord. And as you get comfortable with that chord, then you start practicing bouncing back and forth between them. So as you're strumming and you're making chords, they're independent. Like your groove is your groove. And your chording is just happening. Whatever it would be, right? So they're both happening at the same time. Okay? Let's see. Shane says, what is so good about having a guitar that uses a battery? I wouldn't say anything so good about it, Shane. It's just some pickups are active, so they have a pickup or they have a battery that makes them sound a little bit different, but they're actually kind of a pain in the butt because you got to make sure and change the battery once in a while, which isn't a big deal if the guitar has a spot to pull the battery out, and then it's pretty easy. Mine, I have to take the whole top off to get to the battery, which sucks. So what's so good about it? Nothing really. I just like the sound of my EMGs. I've always used EMGs. Well, I shouldn't say that. I've used EMGs for probably the last 15 years. And so they're in all my primary guitars, which I'll be bringing this guitar to the summit as well. So if you feel like jamming on it, you certainly can. Let's see here. Let's see. Mark says, Steve, the sharing improv that Jeremy is talking about is actually more tricky to feed someone than to battle them, don't you think? The setup needs to be there, so you need to think about it, not just shred. Well, that's the thing, Mark, is when you're jamming back and forth between somebody, you're either you or them are either oblivious to what's happening, or you're trying to work together, right? And a real easy way to think about this, Jeremy and Mark, who's probably done this before, it sounds like, is that, you know, like if you start off a jam, right? So you've got something going here, and you've got, and now it's your turn. You don't want to go up, you know, all this whatever. You want to stay down here and then the other person comes back, and you come back, you know, whatever, back and forth. So you got to listen, right? And usually you got a little bit of nervousness going, because you know at some point one of you is going to go up a little bit, and the other one's got to go up a little bit, and whatever, you know, because you want to keep it interesting. But it doesn't mean it has to turn into this all-out war. But you gotta learn to listen. And what Mark is saying is feed someone, right? You got to feed them something. Well, what he's saying is give them something that they can work with, which is totally true. But at some point, what always happens in those things is that you stop feeding each other because you're just doing the same things over and over and over. So people are going to get bored. People want to see the escalation, right? They want to get to the middle of the movie or the end of the movie where the you know, they want to see the highlight and then bring it back down, you know, that sort of thing. People love that stuff. So, you know, if we're just maintaining to try and exist, there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, it's always fun to bring something up, and then it just gets kind of crazy, and then maybe you bring it back down or whatever. So, but that's a good point, Mark, for sure. Let's see here. Jeremy says, I saw Johnny Lang and his other guitarists cutting heads and having fun. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it should be fun. That's the whole point, is it depends on your personality and the interaction you're having with the people that you're playing with, Jeremy, when you're doing those sorts of things. It doesn't have to become a, I hate you, so I'm going to try and, you know, it's just like basketball or football, or, I mean, it's like anything else that would have some element of, you know, playing a game of horse. It doesn't have to be crazy, but sometimes it's kind of fun when somebody does some insane shot and then somebody else makes that same insane shot, you know. There's just all kinds of different things like that. So, okay, guys, it looks like I'm kind of running out of ability here to keep caught up. And, Scott says, remember Dan Spitz? He's short and he can shred. I talk to Dan Spitz on a regular basis, Scott. I love Dan Spitz. I love his attitude. I love his playing. He's just, everything about him is sick and awesome. Yes, I very much remember Dan Spitz. That's awesome, Scott. Yeah, the whole band was tiny. Well, almost the whole band. Okay, anyway, guys, hopefully that makes sense. I tried to get through everything as much as I could, but I got to get going. I got my family upstairs, and we're going to have supper. So I got to take off. But I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and keep practicing and stay positive. It's very, very, very important, okay? Find goals, and I'm here to help you with those goals, but stay on it, and don't get too frustrated about playing. Remember, life is more, I'm sorry to say this, but life is about more than playing, okay? Playing is the part that brings us together and makes us smile and makes us laugh and throws us on stage and makes us into rock stars for a short while. But there are so many other things we could be doing with our life, too, that we need to focus on to make us smile as well, to give us reason to do this, and to give us money to do this. So everybody take care, and I will speak to you soon, all right?